For this next episode, listener discretion is advised. It contains details that some may find disturbing. Today on Strawberry Ink, as I'm recording from the office, we go back to 1988 to the city of Nashville, Tennessee, where a relationship marked by fear and control ended in tragedy. Angela Clay lived with her boyfriend, Byron Black, in a duplex on Idlewild Street in North Nashville. Angela was 32 years old and the mother of two daughters from a previous relationship, 9-year-old Latoya and 6-year-old Lakeisha. Friends and relatives would later tell investigators that Angela had been trying to leave Byron. It was one of those Black family relationships that turned violent. She told people she was afraid of him and wanted to move out with her children. It was no longer a silly shout match that is seen in several African American families in America. This was getting very physical and was getting concerning. It was dangerous. On the morning of March 26, 1988, a family member grew worried after Angela failed to show up for work and was not answering phone calls. When they went to check on her, there was no response at the door. Concerned, the relative contacted the Metro Nashville Police to request a welfare check. Officers arrived, entered the duplex, and found a horrific scene inside the bedroom. Angela Clay and her daughters were dead. Each had been shot multiple times. The Davidson County Medical Examiner's Office determined that they did not die instantly. They were injured with no stable person to assist them and slowly bled to death. A .22 caliber rifle was recovered at the scene and later traced back to Byron Black. Later that same day, detectives from the Metro Nashville Police Department's homicide unit identified Byron Black as their prime suspect. Witnesses reported hearing gunshots and seeing his vehicle leaving the area late the previous night. Around 3 p.m., officers located Byron's car parked outside his mother's home in Nashville. They approached cautiously, knowing he could still be armed. After knocking on the door and announcing themselves, officers were met by Byron's mother, who cooperated and allowed them inside. Byron was found sitting quietly in the living room, appearing calm and detached. He complied when ordered to stand and show his hands. He was handcuffed and taken into custody without resistance. A protective sweep followed, and a search warrant was executed on the home. Inside, detectives found a .22 caliber revolver and ammunition matching the evidence recovered at the crime scene. Byron was transported first to the Metro Nashville Police Headquarters, where he was interviewed by detectives. He was then booked into the Davidson County Jail. Byron Black made his first court appearance shortly after his arrest before Judge Randall White Jr. at the Davidson County Criminal Court in Nashville. The judge ordered that he remain jailed without bond pending trial. Assistant District Attorney John Zimmerman presented the findings to a Davidson County grand jury through a probe within the state of Tennessee. This grand jury returned an indictment charging Byron Black with 3 counts of capital murder, 1 count of burglary, and 1 firearms offense. Prosecutors announced that the death penalty would be sought. Byron was later arraigned before Judge Seth Norman. Before this judge, he pleaded not guilty to all charges. 2 public defenders were assigned to represent him. Jeffrey DeVasher, and Harold Hardin. In April 1989, Byron Black went to trial. The courtroom was packed as jurors listened to emotional testimony and forensic evidence tying him to the murders. A jury of 12 members and 2 alternates deliberated before finding Byron guilty on all counts. The trial then moved on to its penalty phase. Judge Norman refused to remove the death penalty from consideration, and in May 1989, the jury unanimously voted for a sentence of death. Judge Norman imposed 3 death sentences, one for each victim, along with concurrent prison terms: 10 years for burglary and 5 years for the firearms charge. The death sentences would run consecutively. Byron Black's attorneys appealed his conviction and sentence, but in 1991, the Tennessee Supreme Court had upheld all verdicts, including the death penalty, ruling that the evidence was overwhelming and that the aggravating circumstances were properly applied. In 1993, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear the case in any way, ending his direct appeal. Over the years, multiple requests for clemency were made but denied. None of Tennessee's governors commuted nor pardoned him. Byron spent decades on death row at the River Bend Maximum Security Institution. Over time, his health deteriorated and he began using a wheelchair. He reportedly embraced Christianity in his later years and often spoke of wanting to reunite with his mother, who had passed away while he was incarcerated. On August 5, 2025, Byron Black was executed by lethal injection at the River Bend. His final meal consisted of pizza with mushrooms and sausage, donuts, and butter pecan ice cream. When asked for last words, he said quietly, "No, sir." Moments later, as the chemicals entered his system, his final words were, "This is hurting so bad." He was pronounced dead shortly after 7 p.m. Witnessing from the gallery was his sister-in-law, who watched as the state carried out his execution, nearly 4 decades after the murders that ended the stories of Angela Clay, Latoya, and Lakeisha. This has been Strawberry Ink. Thank you for listening, and as always, stay safe, stay aware, and stay kind. Hug those you love very tightly, especially during the holiday season, and have a good rest of your day.